This is John with Gun.Deals, and today we're going to be talking about Sig's NGSW, or their next generation squad weapon. Now, Gun.Deals sent me out to The Gathering, which is an event put on by Palmetto State Armory. There's a ton of different vendors and companies there showing off all of their new shiny toys, and one of the biggest vendors there was going to be Sig. Now, I was there as a media person, so they basically let me do whatever I want, so I got to take a lot of footage, play around with all of their stuff, and bug them and ask them a ton of questions. So today, we're going to be talking about Sig's 13-inch 308, or their NGSW. But while you're already here, you might as well like, share, and subscribe, as that is free and does help us out quite a bit. On top of that, go ahead and comment your favorite short barrel, heavy caliber gun in the comments down below. Now, getting into specifics on the NGSW that they had out there on that specific day, that was a 13-inch 308. Though again, for the military contract, it is in 6.8 by 51 or the 277 Fury. Now, at its heart, the NGSW is a short-stroke piston-operated gun designed to be a battle rifle and to be used in very harsh conditions, be extremely reliable, and to work well in conjunction with suppressors. Now, while it was there, I believe they put about 2,500 rounds through it while I was there with them, 100% suppressed, and it functioned completely flawlessly. Now, one of the nice things about having a piston-operated system versus a DI system, especially when we talk about that in conjunction with suppressed shooting, which we will talk about their specific suppressor a little bit more later on, is that the internals were all remarkably still in very good shape and very easy to clean because there just wasn't a ton of buildup on the material. Now, that gun that they had out there was 100% brand new, and they went right to shooting it suppressed for, again, about 2,500 rounds. While I was there, they probably got it up to a little bit more before I left on the second day. Now, normally on a lot of AR-10 or DPMS platforms, you're going to start to see some pretty aggressive wear on the bolt itself after about 1,500 rounds, especially 1,500 rounds suppressed shooting. However, with the Sig system, just the way that their bolts are machined, the lockup is very good and very smooth lock and unlock. On top of their coating, they didn't tell me exactly what the coating was, but it was very good. There was virtually no wear on the bolt, again, after about 1,500 rounds, completely suppressed the entire time. Now, talking about the suppressor itself for just a second, it is one of their new steel 3D printed suppressors. With that 3D printed system, it does allow them to do basically anything they want for the internals because you're not having to rely on welding or sleeves or anything else like that. You can basically, whatever you can design and throw into CAD software or whatever they're using to print the thing, you can basically do anything you want. Now, their specific suppressor was a flow-through design, so that is going to help mitigate some of the back pressure of a can, so it's going to have reduced back pressure to like a standard baffle design, which is going to be nice and allow that system to run a little bit cleaner, on top of the fact that it is also a short-stroke piston system. A very interesting short-stroke piston system means that the whole system got to run very well. Now, normally when you think of a 13-inch 308 that's suppressed running a short-stroke piston system, you're probably thinking a pretty violent recoil impulse, at least for caliber. However, in conjunction with their suppressor, the Sig NGSW has a very pushy recoil impulse, though not what I would consider to be terrible, and probably a little bit better than, other comparable 13-inch systems on the market. Now, I have probably been rolling in some of the B-roll of the piston system operating. Basically, there is a very long op rod attached to the bolt carrier group itself. That is not the piston. The piston is actually very short in the gas block housing itself. It's only a couple inches long, and that moves back and forth, and then, of course, actuates upon the long rod on the operating rod on the bolt carrier group, which then cycles the system. Now, because of the way that the recoil system is designed, it is housed entirely in the upper receiver, meaning that it is natively supportive of folding stocks and whatnot, because, again, there is no buffer tube assembly like you're going to get in a standard AR-10 DPMS pattern rifle. Now, talking about the lower for just a second, it is a fully ambidextrous lower receiver with one of their Sig two-stage triggers, very similar to a Geisley G2S, maybe like plus or minus a half pound in total pull weight. Overall, very good. They were only shooting out to 300 yards off of the tripod, so there wasn't really much issue there. Trigger was definitely serviceable. Very nice features, though. You have a bolt catch, bolt release on the right-hand side as well, so you can do everything one-handed. On top of that, not only do they have a standard ambidextrous charging handle like you would on a AR-15, but they also have a side charger. Now, the side charger is purely for the military contract. It's not something that they would just put on one of their normal guns, as it is very redundant and unnecessary. However, it was a requirement of the NGSW contract for the military, so they have one on there. It adds probably 10 to 12 pieces and probably a couple $100s worth of cost. It does have some additional functionality, and it is maybe a little bit more handy than having to come all the way back to the top. However, you almost never use the standard charging handle anyways. But again, it's really only there to satisfy the military contract, not just because Sig wanted to put on an additional charging handle on their gun. Now, as far as the rail system goes, the upper receiver is part monolithic, and then it has a rail extension on it as well. The rail is bolted to the upper receiver, which is a very secure way to mount it. However, as you'll see in some of the slow-mo, the 13-inch 308 with a short-stroke piston operating system is pretty violent, and that rail does have quite a bit of movement during recoil. Now, when it's not recoiling, it is a very rock-solid rail, and so putting on your IR lasers, laser aiming modules, whatnot, should be perfectly secure. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the NGSW is basically designed to run suppressed in conjunction with Sig suppressors, and for that they have a very simple adjustment on the actual piston housing itself. Basically, you push a little detent, you can flip the switch to suppress shooting, or of course back up to normal, depending on how you're running it, though again, they shot it entirely suppressed. Now, the mount that they're using is one of Sig's taper. It's a dual lock mount, basically. You tighten it down onto the taper, and then it actually has a lock ring that locks it down in place. Again, it is a very, very secure lockup. They were able to take it off the suppressor on the second day. So again, after about 1,500 rounds on the first day, it came off without issue, which for 1,500 rounds of 308 is quite a feat. Overall, the Sig NGSW, I believe the MSRP is around $4,100 for a SBR, a short-barreled rifle in 308. It is a very cool setup. It's not necessarily ideal or practical for a lot of us as civilians, and maybe not even very practical for the military either, but it might be one of the best battle rifles on the market that you can currently buy, with all of the features, probably more features than you will ever need. Extremely durable, extremely reliable, set up for suppressed shooting right out of the box, very accurate, so on and so forth. But it's probably not everybody's cup of tea unless you have several $1,000s laying around and you want to have the coolest gun on the range at all times. But with all that out of the way, guys, let me know what you guys think of the Sig NGSW in the comments down below. With all that out of the way, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you in the next one. Peace off.